Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you for your patience as I continue to admit students and parents to our session. I believe we have Ms. Wilson with us this evening. If you'd like to say a few words before we get started, that would be.
Yes, yes, I do, Miss Carmichael. And once you start, I can take over admitting people up a little bit. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We know your time is very valuable, so we appreciate it. So this is the 2023 financial aid meeting with Miss Ann Carmichael from Leela, and she is going to go over financial aid. I know there's been some changes this year with financial aid with the date and so many different things. So we are here to answer your questions. I'm going to be monitoring the chat. She's going to be doing the lion's share of the presenting, and I'm going to be monitoring the chat. So please feel free to ask questions in the chat, but we're going to admit a few more people, then we're going to go ahead and get started so we can respect her.
All right, Ms. Wilson, I'll let you take over with admitting our guests to the session. My name is
I got
Ann.
it.
Okay, great. Um, I'm Ann Carmichael with Leela. And before we get started or get too far into the presentation, I'm going to ask that everyone mute themselves so that we do not have any distractions as we move through. I want to go through as much as I can about the process. I am available after the session to answer questions, or even if you want to contact me via email, I'll provide you with that information at the end of our session. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started by talking to you a bit about the cost of attendance at your colleges. Now, you're going to have to consider not only the tuition, which most college websites will state their tuition for an academic year, but you need to also be prepared to pay for your equipment, books, and supplies. Personal expenses that you might not have incurred while you were living at home. Perhaps you're going to be moving out on your own or onto campus. There will be additional expenses you'll have to cover. Room and board, which is a big one. If you're living on campus or living, say, close to campus, but away from home. And then the big one, tuition and fees. So your tuition, as I mentioned, will be stated by the university, but you need to also keep in mind that you will, when you get your fee bill, you will see additional expenses like athletic fees, technology fees, your library and parking fees. You'll be surprised how those add up. But the good news is that financial aid is available from the U.S. Department of Education, the state of Louisiana, your college or career school, and then nonprofit and private organizations like Leela. There are three types of federal student aid, and I like to reorder these in order of importance. Of course, your free money, which does not have to be repaid. These are federal grants that are available to those who apply and are eligible. Next, I'll put work study. These are on-campus positions that you will be offered if you state on your FAFSA that you're interested in them. Then you would want to consider your borrowed money, federal student loans. Now, on this slide, you can see the amounts available in federal student aid. We are most all familiar with the term federal Pell Grant. You can see the dollar amount for this academic year that you could be eligible to receive. In addition, there's the Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant. These are both need-based programs. The Teach Grant for those who plan to teach in the classroom after they graduate. And then the service grants, which have changed a little bit for the 24-25 academic year. It's not going to be stated as the Iraq and Afghanistan service grant. It is has been revamped quite a lot to include all those protectors that we appreciate the work they do. Then federal work study, which is going to be offered on your individual campus. And then after that, your loans, direct subsidized, unsubsidized, and plus loans. Another plug for federal work study. These are jobs on every college campus that participates in the federal program, and they are available for students who need additional assistance in paying for their academic year. They are jobs found all over campus, in the chancellor's office, perhaps in the department that you're going to be studying. They look great on your first professional resume. So if you go to a four-year college and accept a federal work study job, say in the financial aid office, that is 4 years of professional work study to put on that first resume. Just a few words about the loans if you're offered these and do need them to complete an academic year. The direct subsidized loans that you may be offered will be interest-free while you're in school. The federal government subsidizes or pays for that, pays your interest while you're in school. And these are financially need-based loans. On the other hand, you could be offered a direct unsubsidized loan. This loan is for almost everyone, but interest does accrue while you're in school and then thereafter. Remember, when you are choosing your loans, if you need them, that the U in unsubsidized means that you always pay the interest on that loan. So select those subsidized loans first. All of these monies can be used at four-year public and private colleges and universities, community colleges, career and technical schools for part-time and online college courses. But to access these dollars, you first need to complete the free application for federal student aid. And as Ms. Wilson mentioned, the start date has been delayed. It is most often dropped on October 1st, but there have been quite a lot of changes due to some legislative action. And we're going to talk about those changes. But we've heard that the FAFSA will open in December. We do not have a start date as of yet, but don't worry. We're going to report to you when we find out. You want to make sure that you're following and meeting all those FAFSA deadlines. Almost every college has a priority financial aid deadline. That means that sooner you get your FAFSA submitted, the higher you up are on that list to receive a full award. So make sure that when it does open, you are meeting that deadline and checking your colleges that you're applying to find out what their priority deadlines are. If you're going to use the FAFSA as your TOPS application, there is a deadline the state does impose for that scholarship. So find out what that is from the Louisiana Office of Student Financial Assistance. And then the federal deadline. You have the entire academic year to complete a FAFSA. If you want to go ahead and get started and be reimbursed at the end of the year, that's fine. But it's always best to have your money up front. Who can complete a FAFSA? Of course, U.S. citizens and then U.S. nationals, those that have a green card or an arrival departure record, those with battered immigrant status, and those with a T visa. Before you begin the FAFSA in December, the 24-25 FAFSA, you want to make sure that you're gathering all of the documents you need to complete the form. That way, it should only take 30 to 45 minutes to complete. And those documents include the student and parents' social security cards, the most recent card, student and parents' 2022 federal income tax return, if you filed one, your W-2 wage and tax statements from 2022 for the student, if he worked, and his parents. And then you'll want to start gathering your bank statements, your checking and savings account balances, and certain investment account balances will be asked to be reported as of the date you submit your FAFSA. Now, I want to take a minute to talk to you about the FSAID, which of course what are we got doing here? Which of course can be created now in advance of the start of the FAFSA. And it's good to get this done early because it does have to be verified before you can begin your FAFSA. So let's see what Federal Student Aid has to say about the Federal Student Aid ID.
Perhaps you're a student, parent, or a loan borrower who needs to apply for financial aid, electronically sign your FAFSA form, or access other benefits on studentaid.gov. To take full advantage of all our resources and log into studentaid.gov, you'll have to first create an FSA ID. Your FSA ID gives you access to Federal Student Aid's platform and can serve as your legal signature. Your FSA ID is your account username and password. To prepare to create your FSA ID, have your Social Security number, mobile phone, and/or your personal email address handy. To start, navigate to studentaid.gov and select Create Account. Once you're on the Create Account page, select the Get Started button. If you are completing a FAFSA form and are considered a dependent student, keep in mind that you will need to create your own separate FSA ID using your own personal information. A mobile phone number, email address, and Social Security number can be associated with only one FSA ID. For helpful tips throughout the FSA ID creation process, select the question mark icons that display next to each field. Next, you'll create your username, enter an email address, and create your password. We recommend not using your school-based email address, since you will need to access your Federal Student Aid account after you graduate. Make sure you don't include private information such as your name or date of birth as part of your password. Quick tip, remember, an email address can be associated with only one username and password. Next, enter your permanent address and mobile phone number. Indicate if you want to use your mobile phone for account access. We highly recommend this option, as it allows you to use your mobile for two-step verification and will help you access your account if you forget your username or password in the future. After selecting Continue, you'll be prompted to choose your communications preferences. On the Communications Preferences screen, select if you'd like to receive required communications from us via email or by postal mail. We recommend email. Besides the required communications, we'll occasionally send you informational communications about grants, student loan forgiveness, or income-based repayment plans you may qualify for. You can opt to receive these by email, text message, or both, or choose not to receive informational communications. You'll also have the option to select English or Spanish as your preferred language for the communications we send you. Next, you'll select 4 challenge questions and answers. Memorize or keep these answers in a safe place in case you need them to help access your account in the future. Choose a question using the drop-down and add your answer in the text box. Select Show Answer to see your answer as you type it. Your answers are not case sensitive. You're almost there. On this step, you can review your information and confirm everything looks correct. If you need to make a correction, select the Edit button within that tile of information. After ensuring your information is correct, review and agree to the terms and conditions at the bottom of the screen. Now you'll add two-step verification to safeguard your account. Whenever you sign in, we'll send a secure code to make sure it's really you. You can choose whether you prefer email, text message, or an authenticator app. We'll begin with your phone number. Select the Verify button under SMS verification. You will automatically be sent a 6-digit secure code. At the same time, a pop-up window will open. Enter the code and select the Continue button. You'll see a green verified icon appear that tells you you're successful. Next, verify your email address. Select the Verify button. You will automatically be sent a 6-digit secure code. At the same time, a pop-up window will open. Enter the code and select the Continue button. You'll see the same verified icon, confirming that you verified your email. You'll also see a green box confirming that your two-step verification is ready to go. We also suggest setting up an authenticator app, which provides the most security of the two-step verification methods. Select Set up an authenticator app. A pop-up window will open. Follow the steps you see there. First, download an authenticator app from a mobile app store or use one you've already downloaded. Next, you can either scan the QR code with your authenticator app or copy the key into your authenticator app. Then select Continue. Another pop-up window will appear. Enter the secure code generated by your authenticator app and select the Finish button. You've done it. Two-step verification is enabled. But what if you're in a situation where you can't use the other two-step verification methods? Don't lose heart. You can use a backup code. Your backup code is generated automatically when you enable two-step verification. Store your code in a safe place until you need it. Congratulations, you've successfully created your FSA ID. If you entered an email address, you will receive a confirmation email. Make sure you note your username and password and keep them in a safe place. You can begin using your account immediately, but it will take 1 to 3 days for your information to be verified by the Social Security Administration. Some of your actions on the site will be limited until your information is verified. However, with your newly created FSA ID, you can immediately complete and sign a first-time FAFSA form. You can also use your FSA ID to access your dashboard, review your loan balance, and explore additional dashboard features. You are now able to take control of your federal student aid journey and access all studentaid.gov has to offer.
So as I mentioned, every student and the parent who provided him with the most financial support in the 12 months prior to submitting the FAFSA will need a federal student aid ID. And you may already have done this on your campus, but if not, now is a good time to get started. We use this format with our students and parents as we work with them so that they can record all of their information. You will need this every year that you complete, year that you're enrolled in college and are seeking financial aid. So remember, your federal student aid stays with you for a lifetime. You can use it in all of the ways that were previously reported, but you must remember to record it and keep it in a safe place. Now, the 24-25 FAFSA has not been seen by us yet. We don't know exactly how the form's going to look, but we have been told that when you log into studentaid.gov, that you will see this home page. There are lots of resources here, so you'll want to check all of those out. You will log in using the username and password that you created, that is called your FSA ID. And then you'll identify your role. Do you want to complete the student section, or are you the parent who's entering the student's FAFSA to complete the parent section? You will be shown the information that you used to create your FSA ID, so make sure that everything is correct before you continue on. And new this year is the consent form. Now, in the past, those of you parents who have older children, you may have used the IRS data retrieval tool. That has been retired. Now, everyone will be asked to provide consent for the IRS to transfer your tax information into the student's FAFSA. If you do not report information about, if you do not give consent for the FAFSA transfer, you will not be eligible for federal student aid. You can see that there are 5 sections that the student needs to complete in their section. I want to point out that everyone should, in the class of 2024, should be reporting as a first-year freshman. Even if you have completed dual enrollment courses or clept out of courses, taken AP courses, you still want to state that you are a first-year freshman for financial aid purposes. And then the student is going to be presented with a list of statements to determine whether he's independent or dependent. Now, we all think of an independent student as someone who's turned 18. Legally in our state, I believe 18 is the age where most students or people do feel independent. But for FAFSA purposes, you must be able to answer yes to one of the following dependency status questions. I want to quickly go over these. Remember, they're directed toward the student. Is the student currently serving on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces, or is he a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces? Does the student have children or others who live with him and receive more than half of their financial support from him? At any time since the student turned 13, was he an orphan? Was he a ward of the court? Was he in foster care? Or was he legally emancipated? If you're not quite sure what some of these terms mean, there is a better explanation of each. You can select the question mark over beside each of these statements. And then the last statement, is the student in legal guardianship with someone other than their parent or step-parent? If a student can answer yes to just one of these questions, they are considered an independent student and will not be asked for parental information. Everyone else must provide parental information to be eligible for federal student aid. They will be asked questions about their parents' marital status, and among other things, to be able to determine which parent will serve as a contributor to the FAFSA. So if you are the student who lives in the home of both of your biological parents, then that's easy. You'll just say that your parents are married and to each other, and then they'll ask information about both of those parents. But if you happen to be in a situation where you live with one parent, say they're divorced or were never married or they're separated, it will take you through a series of questions to determine which parent should serve as a contributor. Remember, this year, the rule has changed on which contributors to use. In the past, it was reporting information about the household that the student lived in the longest in the 12 months prior. But beginning with the 24-25 FAFSA, the parent that provided the student with the most financial support will be considered a contributor on that student's FAFSA. Students, once they've identified these contributors, will provide the parents' legal names, birth dates, social security numbers, and email addresses. Now, I know that students don't typically have this information about their parents, So we always encourage students and parents to sit down together to complete the FAFSA. You will then move over into the student demographic section where personal questions are asked about the student's gender and address and phone numbers and email addresses, etc. This will be used to determine federal student aid. Then the student will be asked about his finances in the financial section. Remember that federal student aid is looking for your income from 2022, but your assets as of the date you submit the FAFSA. You can list up to 20 colleges on your FAFSA each time you submit. If you're planning to apply to more than 20 colleges, you will have to enter the first 20, sign and submit the FAFSA, and then log back in, remove those colleges, and add 20 more. Now remember that you must list all of the colleges that you're considering, even if you haven't applied yet, because federal student aid is only going to send your personal information out to those colleges that you give them permission to do so. Now the student has completed his personal identifiers, circumstances, demographics, his financials, and the colleges that he's planning to apply to. And it's time to sign the FAFSA. Emails will then be sent to each of the contributors that were stated by the student so that they can complete the parent section of the FAFSA. Then it's time for the student to sign and not submit because he's still waiting for the other contributors, but he will sign stating that information provided in the form is correct to the best of his knowledge. Next, the parent will receive an email stating that the student has invited him to contribute to his FAFSA. The parent will log in. He will also have to provide consent for the IRS to transfer his information into the FAFSA. And then information about that contributor will be asked: his marital status, the number of students that will be in college during the 24-25 academic year, his legal residence, just general information about that parent contributor. Next, he will report information about his finances. And remember that most of the income information is going to be transferred from the IRS into the FAFSA, but your assets will need to be reported manually. The parent will then be asked if there are any federal benefits that anyone in his family has received or is receiving. Then the transfer will take place. As I mentioned, the parent will be asked about his family size, and this is the parent who provided the student with the most financial support. Even if the student does not live with that parent, the parent that provided the most financial support will enter his family size here and include this specific student. Are there any other children or dependents who live with that parent contributor? That will be reported here as well. Some additional information may be asked to be reported manually. And then it's time for the parent to take a look at his FAFSA summary. You can use these drop-down arrows to look at all of the questions and your answers to each of them to make sure that everything is correct before the FAFSA is submitted. Then it's time for the contributor, in this case, the parent, to sign the FAFSA, ensuring and agreeing that all the information he has provided is correct to the best of his knowledge. Once the FAFSA has been signed by all the contributors and the student, the FAFSA form can be submitted, and both all the contributors and the student will receive an email stating such and give them more information on what's going to happen next. Now, if you happen to be living with someone other than your parents for any specific reason, remember that those people will never report their personal information on the student's FAFSA. But if those people have adopted you, then they are your legal parents and you will provide their information in lieu of your biological parents. If a student happens to be in legal guardianship and say living with a grandparent, that student will not report that grandparent's information because he's considered an independent student and he will not have to provide any parental information on his FAFSA. Now, we know that this can get confusing. So if you're in a special situation, you can always talk to your high school counselor, the financial aid counselor at the college you're planning to attend, or you can email me directly and I'll be happy to help. Once the FAFSA is submitted, it goes to each of the financial aid offices that you have stated on your FAFSA. And at that time, the professionals there will begin to calculate your net price. That means they have considered your cost of attendance on their campus, identified any grants and scholarships they can offer you to attend their school, and provide you with your net price. And that is the amount that you are responsible for paying for your academic year. You will receive a financial aid offer from each of these schools. Usually they'll wait until the student has been admitted for admissions to the school. And then once he has been accepted, then the financial aid office will be notified and they will provide the student with a financial aid offer. They're not all going to look the same, but they all should show line itemed what your cost of attendance, any grants and scholarships, loans, work study, and then you will be able to see exactly what you are going to be responsible for. And so you can make your decisions. You always want to accept financial aid in this order: grants and scholarships, because this does not have to be repaid. That is gift aid. Federal work study is earned income. You don't have to pay that back. But your student loans do have to be repaid once you graduate or cease to attend. I know you're all looking for scholarships. I'm sure you're off to a great start. You can, of course, find those at your college or career school. Your guidance counselor on the high school level is a great resource for that. Private organizations like your parents' employers sometimes offer their employees' children scholarships. Nonprofit organizations like LELA, community churches, social organizations all offer scholarships. So make sure that you're hunting for those and seeking them out. This year, LELA is offering several FAFSA completion scholarships for Louisiana high school seniors. And if you have your mobile device with you and you want to scan this QR code, please feel free to do that now. You do not have to already have completed your FAFSA to complete this application, but you should have completed it once the selections have been made on May 31st. We're offering several $1,000 scholarships for students in Louisiana who decide to go to colleges here in the state, because we want to keep our talent here in Louisiana. So consider your application for the Choose Louisiana Scholarship. And then if you're going to a college that is a bit pricier and you need additional funding, LELA does offer and administer a nonprofit education loan program just for Louisiana citizens. As I mentioned earlier, you'll want to make sure that all your information is kept in a safe place because you must complete your FAFSA every year that you're going to be in college. We're in the process of completing our FAFSA completion guide and workbook. This is a free resource to every Louisiana high school student. So if you haven't already applied for one of our scholarships, or you haven't completed a form to attend to this session, please do so. Please contact me directly and I'll be happy to send you a copy of this once it's published. This is my contact information. If you have a special situation, I'm happy to talk with you about it or put you in touch with someone who can answer your questions. So always feel free to reach out. If you do have any specific questions and you want to drop those in the chat box, Ms. Wilson can take a look at those questions and we can discuss them tonight. If we have any parents on this call that already have a federal student aid ID, I encourage you to go back into the site and make sure that all of your information is up to date before you begin contributing to your students' FAFSA. This year, everyone has to have their email address verified. In the past, you could choose your mobile phone and the Authenticator app, but this year you have to have an email address and either it has to be verified, and then either your mobile phone or the Authenticator would be your second line of authentication.
Does anyone, thank you so much, Ms. Carmichael. Does anyone have any questions they want to drop in the chat to see if maybe we could answer them? Any specific questions? I think, Ms. Carmichael, thank you again on behalf of all the counselors. We really appreciate this because by no means are we financial aid experts, and we don't pretend to be. You know, we know a little bit about FAFSA, but we are not experts. Two of the questions we get a lot, and I said on behalf of the counselors that I would mention this. Number one thing we constantly get is completing the FAFSA a graduation requirement? Yes, unless you complete the FAFSA opt-out waiver. There is a waiver you can complete if you and your family decide not to complete the FAFSA, excuse me, but you have to do one or the other. Fill out the waiver or complete the FAFSA. That is a graduation requirement. Well, how do I get the waiver? Just reach out to your student's counselor and we can send you the waiver, and you just fill out the form and send it back to us, and that'll take care of that requirement. So we get that question a lot. The second question we get, and this might be, you know, more your wheelhouse, Ms. Carmichael, is we get, what about blended families? If I live with a step parent, or I, you know, split time on the weekends with my families. And what we usually tell them is, when you complete the FAFSA, it'll walk you through those questions to help you see which parents need to fill that information out. Would that be most accurate, would you say?
That's correct. And
Okay.
I think the new FAFSA seems to do a better job of walking the students through that process. But
Okay.
it's basically changing this year for those who have already completed FAFSAs in the past. It's no longer the parent that the student has lived with the longest in the past 12 months. It's going to be the parent who provided that student with the most financial support. Now, if a parent says, well, we both provide the same amount down to the penny of financial support for this student, then the student will provide information about the parent who's the highest wage earner. So that is new this year.
Okay, that's new to us too. Okay, I have a few questions for you. First one, yes. Will the PowerPoint and video be available after the meeting? Leela is kind enough to record this meeting for us, and they always make it available to us. Within usually about a week, Mrs. Carmichael, we
Yes,
usually get it.
ma'am. Hopefully sooner.
Okay, so usually give us about a week. We'll get it from them. They'll get it to us, and we'll make sure that it's put in the bulletin by Miss Payton. We'll ask Miss Payton to make it available. Great question. Can you tell us a little bit about Parent Plus loans? What's a Parent Plus loan?
Federal student loans are limited by your classification. So as it'll, and these numbers change every July 1st. But every year a student can borrow a little bit more. But on many occasions, students will go to maybe a pricier college that the student's not eligible to borrow the total cost of attendance. So the parent can borrow on the student's behalf, and the parent can borrow up to the cost of attendance. Now, if you want to allow the students to max out their student loans first, I will tell you that there are lower interest loans, and many parents do have the student borrow. And if there's any unmet financial need, then the parent will step in and borrow on the student's behalf. Now, the Parent Plus loans do go into repayment once the loan is fully dispersed. And that means the student gets a disbursement in the fall for the fall semester, and then another disbursement in January for the spring semester. That's the second disbursement. So it's fully dispersed in January. And you've got about a 30-day grace period, parents, and then you will begin making payments on that loan. With the federal subsidized and unsubsidized loans, those loans do not go into repayment until the student graduates or ceases to attend.
Thank you so much. We have a question. What is the percentage of approval?
For plus loans,
No, just period, not for plus loans. What is the percentage of approval? I'm thinking for FAFSA overall. I'm guessing what that means.
there's so many things that go into the formula to determine how much aid a student is going to be eligible for. Of course, the grants and work studies sometimes are need-based dollars. The subsidized loans are need-based. It's not an easy question to answer. You pretty much have to go through the process and apply to find out exactly what you will be offered. Now, I will tell you that different schools may offer different awards. So it's up to the college itself to issue this money. So if you go to a college where there is not as much Pell being paid out, then your student perhaps can receive a larger Pell Grant. That's why we encourage students to apply to as many schools as possible. If price is important to you, you want to see what you're going to be offered at each school.
Thank you. And one thing you mentioned, which I appreciate you mentioning, and we as counselors, we mention that all the time as well. When you were speaking about scholarships and parents and students, we definitely have the scholarship link on the Benjamin Franklin website. We have it in all the students' Google Classrooms. We're constantly updating it as we get new scholarships. But some scholarships that students sometimes don't think about, that we always like to remind them of, are the scholarships at the specific institution. For example, LSU has scholarships just for students to go to LSU, and so does Tulane, and so does Loyola, and so does every other school. So don't forget about those institutional scholarships that the school offers only to the students that will go to that school, because a lot of times that could be the difference and bridge that gap of the money that might be needed. All right, here's another question. If a divorced dad claimed child on 2022 taxes, not the mom, will he need to be the one completing the FAFSA? Good question.
If he provided the student with the most financial support. And I'm going to
So it doesn't matter who claimed the child.
That's correct.
Okay. So whoever provides the most support, I got it. Okay. All right. Any other questions for us or Ms. Carmichael? Is that in the current year or not previous?
The parent who provides are you talking about like which parent contributor?
I
The
think that's what they're referring to.
Mhm.
Yes.
The
Yes.
parent who provided the student with the most financial support in the past 12 months.
But is that a new rule? Wait, is that in the current year or not previous? Yes, correct. You're correct.
It's for the 24-25 FAFSA. Now, if you're applying for aid
Yes.
this year, it's the parent that you lived with the longest in the past 12 months. But beginning with the
Okay.
24-25 FAFSA, that rule has changed.
Okay. And maybe we can, is there maybe a FAQ, like maybe commonly asked questions that we can make available? Is there something that Leela has?
I am gonna see what I can find for you. It's hard to
Okay.
we haven't really pinpointed federal student aid yet with, you know, a list. We want to see that table and flow chart. We haven't seen anything yet from them,
Okay.
but I know that it's forthcoming.
Okay, perfect. Another question. So only one parent for divorced families.
That's right. Only the parent, the biological parent, which if that he's the legal parent, that provides the most financial support in the past 12 months. And if that parent is remarried, then you must include that step parent.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know.
But believe it or not, ask the student if he will, you know, take his time and with the parent walking through. That's why we really encourage you to do this as a family,
Mhm.
because they will walk you through with a series of questions to determine who that parent contributor should be.
And that's what we usually try to tell our students, but you know, FAFSA can be so confusing sometimes.
Yes.
You know, when you're filling it out, it'll ask you question after question, and at the end, it'll usually let you know, okay, these are the people that need to fill out your FAFSA with you. So,
Yes.
but it can be very confusing. Again, we're not experts; we don't know it all, but we try our best to keep abreast of the changes so we can help the students and the parents when they ask us as well. Any other questions? Ms. Carmichael, what is your availability? If parents, you know, if someone doesn't necessarily want to put something in the chat, but they do have a special circumstance, what's the best way to reach you? What are your office hours? Different things like that.
Well, I work virtually. Well, I kind of have a hybrid schedule, but
Okay.
if they will email me directly at carmichael@leela.org, I will
Okay.
always respond. So basically, I'm working 24/7. I always, you know, try to help as needed. There aren't
Sure.
specific
Okay.
times that, you know, that I'll respond.
Oh, two more questions. I'm sorry that I was supposed to ask on behalf of some of the counselors. One, do you provide CSS profile help if someone needed help with CSS profiles?
I do not. I'm
Okay.
not a
Okay.
CSS profile expert.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't
And
know.
I know we have another contact for that as well. I just didn't know if you did that as well.
That's
So,
right.
okay. And then the next question, if a student or parent, they need translation services, can they get that through your office as well?
The best thing for those that speak other languages are to
Mhm.
call Federal Student Aid directly. I understand
Okay.
they really expanded the number of languages that they can respond to students and parents with. So I'd like to drop their number in this chat box.
Perfect. Okay.
And this is Federal Student Aid, 800-433-3243.
Okay. Thank you so much for that, because we get that question a lot too. Here is a question we have. Can we create the ID, fill everything out now, or do we have to wait until December? I know they can create the ID now. Is there anything else they can do now?
Just if I were them, I would go onto the FAFSA homepage and just dig around and see what other kind of resources might interest you.
Yeah.
I am going to be sending a prototype webinar to all of the counselors. If you want to share that with your parents, feel free
Oh,
to
great.
do that. But right now, the ID itself is of the most importance. Now, we'll tell you that for the first time this year, everyone will need a federal student aid ID, even if they do not have a social security number. Those parents will also create IDs. We haven't seen the website. We don't know the procedure yet or what the criteria is going to be, but those parents will not be able to create an FSA ID until the FAFSA opens. We're told that process is going to open at the same time that the FAFSA is dropped.
I see. Okay, that's good to know. Thank
No
you
more
for that.
printing a signature page for the parent who can't have an ID. No
Yes.
more of that. Everybody has to electronically sign.
Oh, that sounds great. That makes it easier for everyone. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I don't see anything else in the chat. Mrs. Carmichael, thank you so much for your time.
You're
We
welcome,
really
Ms. Wilson.
appreciate it. This is very helpful for, I know, the students, the parents, and definitely for the counselors. We will make the presentation available as soon as we get it. We just get it within a week. And we'll make that available. The prototype, when we get that from Mrs. Carmichael, we'll make that available too. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions. Reach out to your student's counselor. If we don't know the answer, we'll point you in the right direction, whether it's Mrs. Carmichael, whether it's, directly to FAFSA, wherever it is, CSS profile, we have a contact for that. We'll definitely get you to the right place if we don't personally know the answer. So again, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. We know your time is valuable. If you want to stick around for a second, we'll be on here like another minute, and then we're going to kind of log off. So again, good night. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, this for saying thank you. And thank you for coming. We know time is very valuable. So thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Carmichael. Once again, we really appreciate this. This is invaluable. You have no idea.
All right. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. When the recording is ready, just send it to me and I'll make sure Ms. Payton gets it so we can get it out to the students and the parents.
I certainly will.
All right. Thanks. You have a good night.
You too. Good night.
Okay. Bye-bye.